Managing Director of Membership for the National Space Society. And I know I'm not Mark. I'm filling in for him today as he's taking part in an important meeting. So thank you all for joining us. Be sure to drop a note into the comments to say hello or ask any questions or just add to the discussion since I'm doing this solo today. And it's my pleasure to be here on behalf of the American Space Museum and stay curious. What I want to do today is talk a little bit about some current events and what's happening in space in 2025. I know our last session, when I joined Mark last month, we talked about everything that was happening in 2024, kind of a summary. So now we'll try to get a little roadmap for what's coming up. But before we do that, I just want to do a little bit of a promo and for my organization. Okay, let me just try to do that in advance there. There we go. Yes, there we go. So on behalf of the National Space Society, my organization, I just want to let everybody know, and you can start planning now, we're doing our International Space Development Conference, or ISDC 2025. It's going to be in Orlando. It's June 19th to 22nd at the Rosen Center. We are building out a really impressive program. A lot of great sessions, a lot of great speakers. Actually working with Mark, we're going to be doing a history session that will be on Sunday the 22nd. So feel free to join us. It is just an amazing time. We get about 1,000 people. A lot of students are there as well. We are actually planning a special track for students that we're calling Rising Stars. So I hope you can join us. I know the hotel is filling up fast. Feel free, just go to our website, nss.org, and you'd be able to check out the ISDC 2025. I hope to see you there. We'll probably be doing more promos as we go along, but it is a really great event, and hopefully you can join us. So now I want to just talk a little bit about some things that have happened in December and January, what's coming up also here over the next few days, and then take a longer view out at what's happening over the course of 2025 in space. So I don't know if anyone recognizes that. That is the planet Mercury. And in December and earlier this month, there was a spacecraft called the BP Colombo that was sponsored by the European Space Agency and JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency. And the goal of this spacecraft was to study Mercury. And what they did is they had a flyby most recently on January 9th. And here you see the photos of Mercury. They came within 183 miles of the planet. And they're studying the magnetic field, they're studying the magnetosphere, they're studying the interior and surface structures of Mercury. And this spacecraft will eventually go into orbit around Mercury in 2026. But it's just so exciting to see all of the different activities that are happening with our planetary exploration. And just getting a little closer to the sun, what you see here is the Parker Solar Probe. And the Parker Solar Probe was launched in 2018, and it is studying the sun, the helios. They call it helios physics, and it broke its record. It got to within 3.8 million miles of the sun. Can you imagine that? And it has a special carbon protection over it in order to protect it from the heat of the sun and keep its instrumentation cool. It is a pretty remarkable spacecraft, and it just shows you the mission itself and its closest approach to the sun. I was actually speaking today to Dr. Nikki Cox, who is the Associate Administrator of the Science Directorate for NASA, as we're getting ready for another launch tonight. And she worked extensively on the Parker Solar Probe and told me that the spacecraft is doing really well, very healthy. When you think about what it's had to do over the course of its mission and all the things that had to go in to make sure this spacecraft would work, getting that close to the sun. And she said it's a very challenging mission. You think you just aim it at the sun, but it had to go through a lot of maneuvers and procedures in order to get it there. So we're learning a lot more about the sun, and this is just another one of those exciting missions that's happening within NASA. So let's talk a little about what's coming up probably in 2 days. You've probably heard about the New Glenn that's going to be launched on its very first flight. I was out there in Cocoa Beach the other night, actually Sunday night into early Monday morning. The plan was for it to launch somewhere between 1 and 4 a.m. Unfortunately, with any kind of new rocket, of course, they had some anomalies that they just couldn't work out in time to make that window. From what I understand, it was a vent line in one of the APUs that was freezing up. So hopefully they're getting that all worked out. And the next launch attempt will be starting tomorrow night into Thursday morning. So 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. on the 15th of January. So hope to be there again for that launch. And I just put in a few pictures here. This is a pretty amazing rocket. It's 320 feet tall. It uses 7 BE-4 engines to power the first stage. Each of those engines is about 550,000 pounds of thrust. So this is a pretty big rocket that we're talking about. It's designed to take heavy lift into orbit. I believe it is 13 metric tons to geostationary orbit, 45 metric tons to low Earth orbit. And the first stage is powered by liquid oxygen and liquefied natural gas. The second stage uses BE-3 engines, which are liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. The first stage is reusable. They do plan, at least they're going to attempt to land this on its drone recovery ship after the first flight. But from what I understand, the mission parameters of this flight are to get it into orbit. And you see there what's in that middle picture there, that's the inside of the fairing. This is a 7-meter fairing that they have, larger than any other fairings today, which are typically 5 meters, and they could carry almost double the payloads. What you see at the bottom there is something called, let me just make sure I've got the correct terminology on this. It's the blue ring. And this blue ring is a payload assist module to help get to satellites to higher orbits. It also serves as a conduit for communications and computer services. So it will hopefully revolutionize how we deliver payloads into space. So they'll be testing the blue ring on this mission as well. Pretty exciting to see this happening. This is an overview of Space Launch Complex 36. Where Blue Origin was managing all the launches for New Glenn right there. It used to be the site of Atlas launches, and there were between 1962 and 2005 about 145 launches. And just some history, Pioneer was launched from there, Surveyor was launched from there, Mariner was launched from there, and there were actually 2 different side-by-side launch pads. Blue Origin invested over $1 billion to convert this for the New Glenn, and just a magnificent view there, right next to the ocean. So we're excited to have some new history happening with New Glenn in that first launch. Oh, should I go back?
You go back, Burt.
Yes.
You want to point out the old blockhouse?
Oh, there it is. Okay, that was the original blockhouse for the launch pads for the Atlas. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. You see a whole bunch of new structures there, and of course, Blue Origin does a horizontal integration of the rocket, and you see that's the hangar where they do the final assembly for the New Glenn there. And of course, you see the sound suppression water tower and the towers there for protecting the launch pad from lightning. So pretty impressive. There we go. Oops, went a little too far. Let me go back one. What you're seeing there, that's the mission control and launch control for the New Glenn. And if you've been to the Space Center, if you've been to the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, right across the street on Space Commerce Way is Blue Origin's rocket park. And this facility has the mission control, launch control for the New Glenn. And you probably have noticed the building, if you've seen it, that has balconies. So they do invite guests to come out and watch the launch from there. The launch pad, SLC 36, is about 8 miles due east of this facility. So it gives them a perfect view of the launch. And this is a picture I took actually on Sunday. I went out to Jetty Park just to see if I could get a nice view of the rocket. And you see the erector there that lifts up the New Glenn, and the nice shot of the lightning towers and also the water tower. And to the far right, you see the Cape Canaveral Lighthouse. Now that's not on the property of SLC 36, but you can see how really close it is to the launch pad. So obviously no one is there when that rocket launches. But it was just a beautiful day on Sunday to get a nice view of the rockets. I ran into a number of Blue Origin engineers who actually came down from Huntsville. They work on the BE4 engine, and they were excited. I hope they stuck around, that they can still stay around and see the launch. They were really hoping it would make it on the first attempt, but again, you never know with a first rocket launch. But it was great to talk to them and how excited they were about it. Now, the next photo didn't turn out that great. This is from Cocoa Beach, from the Hilton Garden Inn just down on Cocoa Beach. I was using my tripod, and also I put it onto automatic so my camera didn't shake, but you can see a little bit blurry there in terms of the image, but you can see that's how illuminated it was from the launch pad. And I think we're also was about 8 miles away, and it's just a beautiful view, the way the launch pad struts out from the Cape, and you can see it right from Cocoa Beach. So really exciting to be there. I'm hoping that we'll see that launch on the morning of the 15th, and hopefully next time I come back, hopefully have some great photos of it. So what is coming up also tonight, actually, or going into tomorrow morning, there is a SpaceX Falcon 9 launch, and this is carrying 2 payloads that are going to go to the moon. And this one you see here is from a company called Firefly. This is the Blue Ghost, and it will be taking 10 NASA experiments to the moon as part of the CLPS program, the Commercial Lunar Payload Services program. NASA is using this to spur innovation. They are putting these experiments together, and private companies are taking them to the moon. Of course, Intuitive Machines took some of those last year. There was the Peregrine lander, which didn't make it to the moon, from Astrobotic that was doing that as well. But it's a really exciting program. Like I said, it drives innovation, and really the science they're trying to investigate. They're trying to do things that will aid when astronauts get back to the moon with Project Artemis. So a couple of experiments that they're doing on Blue Ghost is that a lot of them have to do with the regolith. They want to try to find out why regolith is so sticky. If you remember from the Apollo pictures, the astronauts, all that moon dust on their boots and their spacesuits. So there's an experiment to work on that. There's also an experiment that they hope will show that with an electrical current, they can disperse this regolith so it doesn't interfere with, for example, solar panels that are on the moon and so on. So some really interesting experiments. So this is scheduled to launch tonight at 1:11 a.m. And their window's about 30 minutes. They got from a 1:11 to about 1:45, again on a Falcon 9 from pad 39A. But also on board is another lander, and this one is part of iSpace. Japanese firm that actually developed a lander last year that did not make it, and it is called Resilience. And it's really again, it's a, oops, sorry, let me move that back one here. They're going to a separate location from the from where Blue Ghost is going, and it actually has a little mini rover that's in it. They're calling it a micro rover that you can see here, and that one is called Tenacious. And that'll separate. They're going to be doing some lunar samples as well, and really exciting. So two of these spacecraft are going to the moon tonight, and wish them luck in getting there. It's pretty exciting to see that happening. All the different innovative companies that are coming up with ways to get payloads to the moon and to do more science that will help pave the way for the Artemis astronauts. Also coming up, again, it's an exciting couple days ahead for us. Tomorrow, at least scheduled at 5 p.m., is the seventh flight of Starship. And they're ready to go. It's I was wondering why they are planning to, they launch it around 5 o'clock. One of the reasons they do that is because they want daylight in the Indian Ocean when Starship comes back. So they want to make sure they have that. So that's one of the reasons they time the launches. So you can see Starship there on 7 on Super Heavy. It will be getting ready to launch tomorrow. And there are some exciting things ahead for Starship. The SpaceX has actually applied for 25 launches with the FAA in 2025. So they're really planning on stepping up the program. They do intend to try to capture Super Heavy tomorrow, like they did on Starship 5. But again, it has to meet a lot of different criteria and so on in order to do that. So hopefully we'll see that happen. But they're also planning a few other things for 2025 with those 25 launches. One of the things they want to do is a test of the human landing system, the commercial human landing system that will take astronauts back to the moon. So they're actually going to take that into, they're actually going to put that into orbit and test that. They're actually also talking about doing a fuel transfer between several starships. All of this in 2025. And I should mention too, I'm going to go back one. One of the things that Starship will be doing on this mission is going to be deploying some simulated Starlink payloads into space. These are not real Starlink satellites, but they wanted to make sure they get that, and they're the exact same size. They won't stay in orbit, but they're going to be doing that as another test. So look for that tomorrow. It'll be really exciting. Watching those launches, and I hope to get there sometime to bring back some photos of a launch. And if they're doing that many this year, we can hopefully, maybe we can all make it out there to see that happen. And let me just show you, this is a concept photo of the commercial the commercial lunar lander in orbit. And hopefully we'll see that happen, tomorrow I'm sorry, later in the year. And we'll have a lot more to talk about with those as well. I mentioned earlier about intuitive machines. In a previous visit here, I shared some photos of the Intuitive Machines 1, Odysseus, which launched last February. And they successfully landed on the moon, but you might remember they tipped over. But they still got a lot of great science. They were able to accomplish a lot. Well, they're getting ready to launch again. Intuitive Machines 2, this one is named Athena. They're actually going to be landing in the south pole of the moon. They're going to be doing some searching for water ice. And there's also a little mini rover too that will come out of this one as well. So again, this is all part of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services program. We wish Intuitive Machines very well. I was really impressed last year when if you remember, when they did the landing, one of their systems wasn't working. And they ended up using a LiDAR system that NASA had, one of NASA's experiments, to help get them down to the surface. and really fascinating that their mission controllers were able to do that. So again, this will be launched on a SpaceX Falcon 9, and looking forward to that probably sometime either February or March of this year. Couple of crewed missions that are coming up as well. This is Crew 10 of NASA. They'll be going to the space station probably late in March. The astronauts are Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers from NASA. There's a JAXA astronaut, Takayo Oshinishi, and a Roscosmos cosmonaut, Kirill Peskov. And they're scheduled to launch about the 25th of March. It's not firm yet. It's no earlier than the 25th of March. Hard to believe they're already up to Crew 10. And of course, we're all looking forward to Sonny and Butch, who were part of the Starliner mission way back in June, who are now part of Crew 9. So once Crew 10 gets there, Crew 9 will be coming back as well. So they've been there for 8 months when they were only supposed to be there for 8 days. But they'll be coming back on a Crew Dragon as part of the Crew 9 mission. Again, it's no firm dates yet. They'll have to wait and see when Crew 10 launches, and then they'll come back sometime after that. So it might even be extending a little bit into April as well. And of course, Axiom, the private company, is also planning another mission to the space station. And this is Axiom 4. These are all private astronauts. But of course, the commander is astronaut Peggy Whitson, this will be her second mission on an Axiom flight. And these astronauts are going to spend about 2 weeks on the International Space Station. They come with a lot of experiments for their sponsors. If you remember the Axiom 3, they actually got a little bit extended and extended about 5 extra days on the space station because of weather in the landing area. So look forward to that. They'll be launching again on a SpaceX Falcon 9 and a Crew Dragon. I don't know about you. I'd love to be able to do that for a couple weeks on the space station. That sounds so exciting. And Peggy Whitson, again, a very experienced astronaut who will be commanding that flight. Now, this is one I was not aware of. I was looking at some activities for 2025. Anybody out there hear of Fram 2? Okay, I'm just wondering if you did that. This is a mission set to be the first human mission over the poles, the North and South Poles. And it's named after a famous explorer vessel called Fram, which actually completed voyages in the Arctic and Antarctic. And aboard this Crew Dragon, this is a SpaceX mission, are going to be four private astronauts. And the person sponsoring this is a Chinese investor named Chun Wang. He's from Malta, and I don't know how the funding is going, but he's got 3 other very accomplished individuals. None of them are astronauts, which is interesting. So there won't be any astronauts going there, but all of them are explorers and going to be doing a lot of extensive research as they go over the poles. And so this is scheduled for sometime later this year. I didn't see any dates for it. Could be late spring, early summer. But I had not heard about this. I don't know if anyone else had, but it's a kind of an exciting mission, but also, again, no professional astronauts on board. I know Inspiration 4 did that with Jared Isaacman and, of course, Polaris Dawn as well. But very accomplished aviator he was. So I'm wondering how the training is going for this, but it certainly will be interesting. And I did not see the launch site for this. I assume it's going to be Kennedy, but obviously, NASA was originally had Vandenberg as a launch site for the polar missions of the space shuttle. But I do not believe the SpaceX facility there is capable of handling crews. So that's why I'm thinking it's going to come from Kennedy. And I don't know parameters there are, or what has to happen to get that into that polar orbit. But a very interesting, flight. Marty, any messages coming in yet, or anyone just wanted to check?
No, no messages. We have people's signing in, but no
Nothing,
questions.
no questions or anything like that. Okay, great, everybody. And if anyone has anything to add about any of the missions I'm talking about, please do. Would love to get your feedback and a little bit more information here as to what some of these are. So this picture is these are dual satellites. It's called the Escapade, and these satellites. I'll tell you what the acronym stands for: Escape and Plasma Acceleration and Dynamics Explorers. They're two identical spacecraft, and they're going to investigate the solar wind and how it interacts with Mars's magnetic environment, and also how this drives the planet's atmospheric escape. So two very interesting spacecraft. They will be launched on a New Glenn rocket. So of course, New Glenn needs to get operational before they do that. This will be sometime later in the summer. This next image just shows a little bit about the mission itself, and again, they're dual satellites. Pretty interesting program that they're planning here, and again, there's so much great science that's happening with some of our planetary neighbors. It's going to be interesting to see all the results of these. But again, that's one that's coming up later this year. Let's get back to some human spaceflight. So what you're seeing there is a Crew Dragon approaching actually it's a commercial space satellite. I'm sorry, commercial space station named Haven 1. And Haven 1 is being manufactured by a company called Vast. And we actually had a great presentation by them at last year's International Space Development Conference. The company is a fairly new company, founded in 2021, and they are developing this commercial space station that they see taking over for the International Space Station. There are a number of these that are in development. This one will just hold a crew of 4, and just see what the module looks like. It would be launched again on a SpaceX Falcon 9, and Vast has signed an agreement with SpaceX. Then they'll ferry their private astronauts to the space station. They can stay on board for about 2 weeks. It's about a 2-week limit there, and they're actually working on Haven 2, which could hold 12 astronauts, but that's sometime way in the future. But they do hope to launch Haven 1 sometime later this year, and that's really exciting as well. So there's so many different opportunities that are happening for both crewed missions and of course science missions, and it makes space so exciting right now for all of us. So look for more information on that as the year progresses, but it should be pretty exciting. And also coming up sometime in 2025, that is the Dream Chaser. And Dream Chaser was designed by Sierra Space, used to be part of Sierra Nevada Corporation. This is part also of the commercial resupply missions to the space station. That's under contract. So they will be launching, taking supplies to the space station. Eventually, this will be converted to carry astronauts as well. And this is now here at the Kennedy Space Center. It's undergoing testing and integration. It will be launched on a Vulcan rocket, United Launch Alliance Vulcan rocket. And the neat thing about this, of course, it is reusable, and it comes back and lands on a runway like the space shuttle did. Or the X-37, Boeing's X-37, the military spacecraft. So really exciting. I've had some interaction with some engineers there at Sierra Space. And if you come here, you can also see a mock-up of it in the gateway here at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. But they're going to be their first test flight later this year. So look for that as well. There are going to be some new rockets this year, and just want to share what's happening. I know this kind of looks like a starship, but it's actually called the Neutron, and it's designed by Rocket Lab, which builds the Electron, and it is it's going to be a 2-stage vehicle. It's designed to take payloads of about 28,000 pounds to low Earth orbit, and it's partially reusable. And the idea here is to service the mega constellation satellites, things like Starlink and so on. Don't have any kind of dates yet. They started working on this in March of 2021, but again, they're planning a first launch sometime this year. So this is for Mark. I know Mark loves astronomy, and what you're seeing there is part of what's called the Vera Rubin Observatory. This will be the world's largest digital camera, and this observatory is going to be in a mountain in Chile. It's supposed to open sometime in July, and it has an ultra-wide, ultra-high definition time-lapse camera that it's going to be using. And think about this. It's about the size, the camera itself is about the size of an SUV, weighs about 6,000 pounds. It has 3,200 megapixels on it. So think about getting a camera that's good. It uses an 8.4 meter lens. And the idea here is it's got a 10-year mission. They're going to be snapping pictures of the sky over the course of 10 years. It's called the LSST camera, and it's Legacy Survey of Space and Time. So they're going to be building all these images, looking at the sky, a composite after 10 years of our entire skyscape, and that's really interesting. This gives you an idea of what it looks like on the top. I was doing some research, and they were saying if you want to come visit, but it's not open yet, but that would be a really amazing place to go visit. It's named after Vera Rubin, an astronomer who did lots of work in understanding dark matter. And this, again, it could be operated by it's a U.S. program, with the cooperation, of course, of scientists from all over the world. But really exciting to see that, and hopefully we can make a visit sometime once everything is open. There's another. I'm going to just point out what the Chinese are working on, and I might actually mess up the name of this, but China is working on their own asteroid recovery mission. And this is a mission to Kama Olea. It's an asteroid that is nearby to Earth. It's a near-Earth object. It's actually uses around the same orbit as Earth, about 4 million miles from Earth. And they're planning a mission called Tianben 2, which will be an asteroid sample mission. So they're going to go scoop up some of that samples and bring it back. Very elaborate. And remember, they did a great job last year with recovering the samples from the far side of the moon. So they're really advancing their own space science as well. So obviously give them this asteroid's only about 40 meters across. So it's not a very big asteroid. So they'll have to do some good work to get it there. But I think it's really exciting, and again, shows the international work that's happening with space science and space exploration. Here's something I saw in one of the newspapers here in Florida. Project Hinton. Now, whatever it is, as the article said, I'm quoting from the article, It's big. So on the 18th of December, Space Florida's board of directors approved what they call a substantial investment in Project Hinton, signifying a major development for Florida's Cape Canaveral spaceport. So it involves a capital expenditure of 1.8 billion by an undisclosed company. Now, maybe you can speculate: is that SpaceX bringing Starship here? I don't know, but the idea is they're going to construct a high volume production facility, a high bay, and launch infrastructure. It's supposed to generate approximately 600 jobs and an average annual salary of about $93,000. So a $1.8 billion investment, just incredible. So be anxious to see where that is, if that is SpaceX or some other company that's involved, and what that entails. But it also demonstrates all the amazing things that are happening here on the Space Coast, and you just wouldn't recognize it with all the new companies coming in, what's happening on Cape Canaveral Space Force Station as companies are taking over some of those long abandoned launch facilities, like again how Blue Origin converted SLC-36. So more to come on that. Hopefully we'll hear more about it as it progresses. So that's a really quick rundown of some of the things that are happening. I do have a reading list for you. Okay, let me just get that list here. We'll talk about who's joined us. But it's give you a little homework in case you need something to do. So we at the National Space Society, we had some recent guests on our space forums, and we highlighted a couple of new books that have come out about space history. And I want to just share those with you. And then so the first one is the People's Spaceship by Amy Kaminsky. Amy is a longtime NASA employee. She works in public engagement with NASA. And the book tells the transition that happened from when we went from Apollo, which of course was a major program that involved, the government and getting to the moon before the Russians did, to converting it to the space shuttle program, which they intended to make it more open to the general public, more transparent to the general public. And how do we engage people to care about space? It's a really interesting book that goes into a lot of great detail about how that transition was made, how NASA had to redo its thinking to sell a program to the public. Because remember, Apollo, they didn't have to. Apollo, we were there to beat the Russians their Soviets to the moon. Now with the space shuttle, it opened up a whole different dimension to how NASA operated and interfaced with the general public. So I highly recommend the People's Spaceship. The next book is Re-Entry. It's about how SpaceX, Elon Musk, and reusable launches changed the whole dynamic of space. Changed the whole paradigm. As Eric Berger is the author, he is the space science journalist for Ars Technical, and this is a really fascinating book. If you'd like to learn more about Elon Musk, you will get a lot. But I think what I really enjoyed about the book most is that he focused in on a lot of engineers at SpaceX who actually had to make all these things happen. How did they get to this reusable first stage of Falcon 9? And I'll give you one example of some of the dynamics in the book where he talked about the fairings. A lot of you know that SpaceX recovers the fairings that cover the payload and refurbishes them and uses them again. At the time, there just one major company was designing these fairings, and they cost about $5 million a piece. And Elon Musk put out a directive that he wanted to see if they could design a fairing for about $1 million a piece. And turns out they really couldn't. The intricacy of the design and the structure of these things, that was really hard to do. But the whole idea of directing them to come up with a way to save money had them thinking about different things. Well, if we can't make them cheaper, can we recover them and use them again? And first they thought, well, maybe we can catch them. And they did, well, that isn't going to work. And then they finally decided they can put in some parachutes, have the fairings come down in the water, and then grab them, bring them back, and refurbish them. And that's just the amazing innovation that SpaceX is involved with that helps bring down the cost of these rocket launches. So I highly recommend it. It's a fascinating read. You'll certainly learn more about Elon Musk. I know he's in the news a lot now, but I really think give credit to the engineers at SpaceX who have done some just incredible things that have put them so far ahead of every other space company. So fascinating read. Definitely do that. And the last book actually comes from one of the American Space Museum's board members, Emily Carney, who also founded Space Hipsters, and Bruce McCandless, who is the son of astronaut Bruce McCandless II, who is famous for that incredible iconic image of him floating in space in the manned maneuvering unit when he was not tethered to the space shuttle. Just an incredible, incredible picture. And Bruce and Emily have put together what they call a beginner's guide to the American space program. And it covers everything from Goddard to where we are today, even talking about some of the commercial aspects of space today. And what I find so great about it, it's done in chapters, and they do it in a way where you can actually read each chapter independently, but they actually bring in a lot of the cultural and societal things that happened. It's not a specific technical history, if that's what you're looking for. As they say, it's for beginners, but it's for anyone who's interested in space, whether you are a beginner, whether you're a dedicated space enthusiast or a space professional. I think you'll enjoy the engaging narrative that they have. And they also have a number of things where they talk about in testament to Apollo 11, like the 11 best space books that you can get, 11 coolest astronauts, for example. And then they make 11 predictions about what's going to happen in space going forward. So these 3 books I highly recommend, and hope you'll enjoy them. If you have some that you'd like us to showcase, please feel free to let us know. But I think you'll enjoy all 3 of these books. So let me just take a few minutes to just recognize some people who are on today watching us. Any other comments or questions, Marty, or everything's quiet on the front?
All's quiet.
All is quiet. Okay, everyone's so enthralled and listening to me that you really couldn't even ask any questions, but that's okay. So on joining us today, we've got Doug Forrest. Hello, Doug. We've got Carlton Bailey, who's Carlton. I'll hopefully see you again at maybe the launch tonight, and for New Glenn, Dean Babcock, Steve Jokum, Tom Uziak has joined us. Cliff Watson, who's coming from Australia. Let's see, Tom, how is that?
Celentano.
Tom Celentano and Bill Whiting are just a few of the people who are joining us. So thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. It's really great. I appreciate that. So as we go along and do more Stay Curiouses, Mark has invited me to come back more frequently, and I hope to do that and share other stories just like this. If you have some ideas of a program you'd like to see, definitely reach out to us, and we'd be glad to see if we can do that. There's so many great things. I will say I didn't mention anything about Jared Isaacman, about becoming the NASA administrator. I know that was discussed yesterday. But they're also, with this new administration and a new NASA administrator, probably one of the big things you're going to see is what happens to Artemis. Because, they're moving forward with Artemis 2, which is now scheduled for 2026. But long term, what is going to happen to that program? So that will be interesting to see what happens. I guess there is a comment?
Yeah, from Dave Stange. He says, good show. You answered my few questions. I had, so no need to ask.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm good with the ESP. I can answer questions before they're asked. Sounds good. Thank you so much. Very good, everybody. So I think we're going to close it out. I do want to remind everybody to come back tomorrow for another edition of Stay Curious. And they're going to do the shuttles of the month and focus in on the shuttles from January. So that should be a very interesting program. I thank you all for your attention today. And it is my pleasure to fill in for Mark. I hope he watches this and thinks it went very well and it still decides to invite me back as well. So everybody, I just want to say thank you for joining us. For those who are in different time zones, guess good evening, maybe for Australia, have a great day ahead, and we'll see you next time. So everyone, stay curious.